Chelsea here with Studio Chat, an entertainment talk show covering movies, TV, music, and more. And today we have a wonderful guest whose career has spanned just about all of that, the lovely Diane Franklin. How are you doing today?
Oh, thank you so much. I am so happy to be on your show. And thank you so much for asking me, Chelsea.
Of course, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me. So, of course, we recently met at the Hollywood show in Burbank, which is such a fun event. And you had quite the crowd at your table there promoting your books and spending time with fans. So, to start things off, talk to me about that recent experience.
Well, thanks for asking. There's a lot of people that, obviously with the pandemic, people have been sheltered more inside their homes and they're not going out and doing events. But this was kind of the first event that a lot of people started attending. And I have to tell you that if you've never gone to a signing convention, it is an amazing experience. It's a great experience. Not only are you meeting the fans, you're meeting the actors and the celebrities and the people that you've grown up with, watching, which is, I think, a phenomenal experience personally. I still get excited when I see people that, like, from my generation, when I was a kid growing up, seeing actors, performers there, but also you also around other people who love what you love. So you actually make friends with people. And I just think that I feel very fortunate because the films that I've been in have sort of been cult classics. And what has happened from that is then I get to meet like really cool people because people are interested. A lot of actual actors are very excited about cult films. There are commercial successes, but then there's also films that are people's favorites. And you kind of feel special when you know about a really cool movie that maybe other people don't. So I feel very honored and happy to be able to be in some of these films and then get a chance to meet other actors who respect my work and vice versa.
That's great. And a great way to kick things off, because yes, you've been in a number of films and film series with devoted followings, like you said, some cult classics and, things that people really connect with and love. And, there's the Better Off Dead, the Bill and Ted, and the Amityville horror franchise. Those are just a few highlights of an amazing career so far. And I definitely want to get to as much of that as we can. So I feel like the best way to start is to talk about your books where you're recalling a lot of these experiences. So you have 3 books, very cleverly titled Excellent Adventures, Excellent Curls, and Excellent Comedy of the last American French exchange made with the 80s. Absolutely love that. So let's start off by going back to the first one you released in 2012 and kind of what led you into writing an autobiography at that point.
What got me to write it was originally I was actually originally saving a lot of my memorabilia for my kids. I thought, okay, I'm gonna just save all these things. And at a certain point, I realized that, when you have kids and you're an actor, you're always, the most important role you play is mom. That really is it. And so my kids will never see me as Diane Franklin. They'll always see me as mom, no matter how old we are. And I just think that is awesome. But also because I've done so much work, I really thought maybe other people are interested in my career. And I have gotten fan letters throughout my life, but I never really took them seriously because I was like, oh my gosh, what, I never did publicity. I never was somebody who was, I never got in like a hit show. It wasn't like I had that kind of exposure. So over the years, then when I had all this material, I thought, okay, wait a minute, maybe people are interested. So I actually made a handmade book. And this was actually before people, I think, were doing self-publishing more often. So I actually made a handmade book. I printed the pages. I made a hardbound cover. And I made like 100 of them. They're like collector's items. And I went to a convention and I sold out. And I couldn't believe it. And I was like, okay, if I sell out, then I'm going to actually publish this into a book. So at the time, someone told me about this way of doing it, and I thought, okay, I'm going to try it. And I majored in English in college and later on, not at the beginning, and theater. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to try to take a chance and make this happen. And I had a friend of mine who was an editor, and I thought, okay, let's just make this happen. So that is how the first book came to be. But one more thing I have to say is that I'm so happy that you mentioned the titles, and you're the first person who's noticed that I just changed the word in the middle. So once you get it down, it's kind of easy. And I think that it just makes it, the title is long because I wanted a title that you couldn't say without laughing or smiling, and kind of indicative of the energy that I have. So flowing good energy. So I really appreciate you noticing being on that.
Of course. No, I mean, it's very clever titles for sure, because, it kind of encompasses the things that you're best known for, the whole French American thing referring to Better Off Dead, the term excellent referring to Bill and Ted, of course, makes sense. But, with adventures, you're highlighting just your autobiography, your adventures overall. And then the next one, Excellent Curls, which you've been credited with bringing a curly hair trend to the screen in the 80s. And this one seems to be more of a photography exploration of your career.
Yes. So the first one, if you're interested, the excellent adventures is a general look at my entire career. If you know nothing about the 80s, it's an excellent book, most triumphant book, to look through and sort of get a general idea of who I am, what my background is, and how does a suburban girl get to become a movie star? How does that even happen? So I give that to collectors, to people who love the 80s, and to people who want to be actors, and also, are interested in my life. So that's the first one, Excellent Adventures. The second one are for The Last American Virgin fans, because that book really focuses on how my curly hair came into the mainstream of American 80s fashion. The idea of curly hair was not considered the beautiful girl. The curly hair was always in the 70s considered the sidekick or the funny girl. It wasn't associated with somebody who was beautiful. And in the movie The Last American Virgin, my character was the dream girl. So it's a funny story of how it happened. I talked about it in my book. Actually, I can show that here because this is real live here. This was the first Excellent Adventures there. And but this is the one I'm talking about now, the Excellent Curls. And this book is it does have a lot of photos in it. This was my I never thought I would be writing another book, but I made sure that I wrote this because I wanted people to know that diversity is something that only stays alive as long as we keep it alive. And so for me, it was just a very interesting part of my life where I was in the right place at the right time and sort of introduced a portion of diversity into American culture, which then led to other more open diversity aspects. So I had this dark curly hair. And at the time, the fashion was straight blonde hair. And that was the American dream, the American girl that Farrah Fawcett or Marsha Brady or even Jodie Foster, even that straight long blonde hair, which is always gorgeous. But the problem was that if you had curly hair, you were so unattractive in the world. Like you felt like you weren't pretty. And I know that everybody feels this way, right? About their own thing. Everybody feels it. And it is amazing. And so that's why I put this book out. So this book, the Excellent Curls, are for all those who have curly hair, who've ever felt embarrassed, shameful, straightening it. And that's not to say you don't straighten it when you feel like it and it's fun, but you shouldn't feel ashamed of yourself, and you should take something that is you, embrace it, and make it cool. Like how you bring it is with confidence. So this book is really like you go girl, kind of like sort of a feeling for you. If you need a kind of a pick me up, this is the book. And so this was, it's interesting because I really feel like the younger generation can benefit from all these books, but this one is about embrace you. Okay. And because you never know. I had no idea. If you told me that I was going to be the dream girl, I would have thought, are you kidding me? Like that is something, that I want people to take away with.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that you took, aspects of your career and made it into this whole empowering story and message. And that comes through in the book, which is really awesome.
Thank you. Which then leads me to the third book. Voila. This to me is the Excellent Comedy. And I say this with a French accent because those of you who don't know, I played this character, Monique in the 1985 comedy Better Off Dead. It is a cult classic, a dark comedy. And as far as I know, it is still beloved. to so many.
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you. See, and so even you know this film. And I think what's really saying something about it is if it's passed down to the younger generation, then it still retains its value. Right. So, but this book, this is what's really cool. So the other two books were about my life, and I could write about them confidently. But this book came from people loving this film. And I, at these conventions, which we just went to, have normally brought my coat, the actual coat I wore in the film, to these conventions to have patrons wear for photos. And anybody who's loved the movie Better Off Dead is so excited to actually wear this coat in the film that I wore in the film. Well, I had so many people wear this that eventually somebody said to me, well, you should put this in a book. And that is what inspired me to write this. But this was a bigger responsibility because now I was writing about the experience you have when you watch this film, and the facts and the feeling and the love you get and all the things behind the scenes that people didn't know. So I did a lot of research on this. This book probably took me about 2 years, although I usually take about 2 years to write my books in general. But this one has never before heard interviews and behind the scenes things I didn't even know. I got information from the writer-director Savage Steve Holland. He sent me like 30 pages of incredible detailed work. So you will laugh out loud when you read this. But I must recommend, I think you should watch the film first, see if you like it. And then when you read this, it'll all make sense. Okay.
Definitely set up the context and everything, and then you'll see why it's called excellent comedy.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you.
Of course. So, I mean, that must have been fun though, because like you said, with the first two, you were telling your own story from your own perspective, but now, all these other players came into play in a sense because you had their stories to combine and tell as well. So gathering stories and photos and interviews and everything, did it feel like kind of reliving the experience of the movie?
Yes, it did. It brought me back. And I had some really cool experiences. Like I actually interviewed Curtis Armstrong. So the two of us are on Zoom, and I have this beloved interview with the two of us. And we were going down memory lane. And it was just, at a certain point, Curtis and I were just looking at each other, and it was like, wow, remember when that happened? And do you remember when this happened? And so that was it. I mean, I don't think, a lot of people obviously who are authors, they don't have that experience of going back in time and sort of reminiscing, but at the same time also writing about it. So that was incredibly cool. And then another very fun experience was Rupert Hines wrote the music for the film. He did the score, most of the score. And he one of the songs he did had the singer Cy Kernan singing With One Look. And when it's just, you have to read the story. It's unbelievable. It's in the book, but I actually got to speak with him, and he was in London when we did a Zoom, and I have that interview. And he is one of the nicest guys. We had the best interview, and he actually played me a new version of With One Look that he's been working on just by chance. So in the future, I think that's going to be coming out. But it was just by chance I was writing this book. So it really is sort of like kismet. Some things happen and then it leads to the next thing. So I cannot wait till you hear that song, because that made me cry. I was seriously going, oh my gosh. So yeah, so there's really, it's just amazing how one thing leads to another. And even to this day, even after I wrote this book, I found out even more information from people. So it's very exciting when you go back in time and you reminisce. I love nostalgia. So I'm excited that you love the film too. Like I actually wanted to ask you, like, how did you find the film and what did you think about it? Because you're the next generation,
Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that opinion. Also,
Yeah.
just a note on that song, that's really cool because I feel like what we were just saying, Better Off Dead having a lot of devoted fans and everything, that's yet another piece of, not only nostalgia, but something new coming out of it. That'll be very exciting as well.
Absolutely.
Yes. So in terms of me, I mean, I personally am pretty much fascinated with everything 80s and retro in general, 60s, 70s, 80s. A lot of that time period is very fascinating to me. I love the pop culture, the music, the movies, and everything like that. So it kind of is only a natural par for the course that Better Off Dead should be part of that as well.
Well, you're an old soul then, you know, that the people say that, you know, you're an old soul, like you value things in the past that, you know, I mean, there's things that are new and we take that in, but there's somehow about like, sometimes, I don't know, like sometimes films, I think they just connect with a part of us. And there's so many now, like you can choose, it's so boutique. Like you can say, I like, you know, a horror, but I like a horror that's comedy, or I like, you know, real like graphic horror. So we all go to a place in ourselves when we watch a film and we kind of find sort of our soul, you know? And what's interesting when you're saying the 80s and all that stuff, it was a very upbeat decade,
Yes.
kind of daring, kind of maverick time. And so I think as my experience is that people gravitate to the world that they feel expresses themselves. And one of the things that I love about Better Off Dead was that it was fun, upbeat, but it was also romantic. And I love the romantic age, you know, I like that. I like when the wooing and I don't know, I just think that I remember, you know, I just think that's wonderful. So I appreciate the fact that you love, you know, nostalgia.
Of course. Well, I appreciate you saying that as well. But no, it's true. I mean, a lot of 80s movies kind of had a little bit of everything, you know, the comedy, the romance, occasionally a little bit of dark comedy in the case of Better Off Dead, especially.
Yeah.
But yet, you know, you can still laugh at it. It's not, it doesn't get too serious kind of thing. And, you know, it
Yeah.
is part of that upbeat feeling. The music was upbeat, the movies were upbeat, and
Well,
yeah,
that's
you
another
just had a
thing,
little
the
bit of
music.
everything. Yes.
Like you said, the music, that's another thing that happened in the 80s that was not, hadn't not happened really in the 70s. Scores were done for films, but in the 80s, and I'll tell you, Last American Virgin was, I think, one of the first, well, it was certainly it was the first teen film ahead of Fast Times that came out, which added music that was popular.
Yeah.
So it was the first film that did that. And then it just took off. Everybody wanted to get filmed. Of course, it got more expensive, but for some reason, they were able to do it in Last American Virgin. It's a classic.
Absolutely. And so since we were talking about Better Off Dead, I am curious about what were some of your favorite moments of the role while you were playing Monique?
Oh, I loved playing Monique. I loved playing a character that didn't speak, or supposedly didn't speak her didn't know how to speak English, because it makes you have to use your eyes more and be more and listen better. And like, it was just kind of a great character to play. I mean, I just think it's nice playing a foreigner, because you also you're watching and you're listening a lot more, and you have to be more expressive with yourself physically. Okay. And I love that, to play that kind of a character. And as Monique, then as who Monique is, what was great about playing her was her capability, her drive and her strength, and playing a character, a strong female character. People talk about that a lot, but what I loved about Monique for me was that she was a character that was still feminine. She could be feminine, but she could fix a car, and she could be athletic and ski the K-12. And she was smart, and she didn't give away everything. You know, like I think today sometimes, you know, girls, like they just, or girls, guys, you know, they just say everything. And she was thoughtful before she said things, and she was thoughtful about her actions before she let on, you know, because she knows what it's going to happen with Ricky. You know what I mean? So you want to think before you speak, you know? And I think that was kind of a cool character. The audience was in on how special she was, because she wasn't just sort of like, you know, saying everything, you know, and I think it made her a little bit more interesting and endearing. So, but the one thing I have to say, what was really fun about playing Monique, on top of everything, were the clothes too. I mean, the clothes were so much fun, because she got to, it sort of had an Annie Hall look. It was like the coats and the vests and the pants. And it was, I think, a very sweet character and a cool look. which today I still admire. I think that there's not many characters who have been able to take on that fun look.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I mean, I want to address a couple of things you said there, but of course, we're talking about 80s movies and music, but fashion, of course, was a big part of it as well. But in terms of Monique, I mean, it's true. It feels almost like you had a slight silent comedy element at times because, you had to be extra expressive by, concealing the fact that you could actually speak English. Then it was this grand reveal when you're like, oh, wait, there's this whole character that we saw one side of her and now we see the rest of her reveal, which is great. So I think that's a great credit to your acting as well, because you have very expressive.
Merci.
Yes. And I love that are able to, draw ideas from the roles that you played and have these empowering and meaningful messages that come out of it as well, from being the, quote unquote, the curly haired girl in the Last American Version and turning that into a message of, empowerment and, feeling confident in the way that you look. And then this element of, being Monique and having that, what you were just saying, that sort of interesting mystique, but yet, being feminine yet strong at the same time. So it's, it feels like you've played very meaningful characters that deeper messages can be drawn from.
Well, that's the way I see it. I always pick whenever I play a character, I always say to myself, I mean, personally, when I play something, there has to be a value. Now, for instance, I played a lot of people, for instance, I played a character in a movie of the week called Summer Girl, where I played a bipolar or schizophrenic babysitter. I kidnapped the kids, I seduced the husband, and I pushed my boyfriend off a cliff. Okay, not too many valuable things.
No, I'm kidding.
Right. But right, lots of fun to play. But what that teaches, like, think twice before you hire your babysitter, right?
Exactly.
There's always something to learn from everything we do. But I always really do try to give of myself, because I really, some roles require to be really vulnerable. Some require me to be really open in other ways. Some require me to take a stand. I mean, I just think acting is the gift I can give as a performer, is to enlighten the audience to feel something, to experience something, because a lot of every day we go and do things, we do a million things, and when you go to the theater, you go to you watch something, you want to watch something that takes you to another place, that gets you in touch with your inside of you, and to get you relaxed, or maybe connected to feelings you have been avoiding. Maybe it'll get you emotional and dealing with something that you may not have felt comfortable to do alone, but then you watch something and you go, oh, you know what? I feel safe in this environment and I can connect with that. So, I have a lot, I think film and television really helps people emotionally.
Absolutely. No, I agree. That really is what entertainment is about. Sometimes it's, a total escape from everything. Sometimes it, helps you understand something better that you're going through yourself. And sometimes it's just for pure fun and laughs and just a little time off and some fun and laughs. So definitely. And I feel like the roles that you played kind of span a lot of those different, areas as well, from the comedy, but you're also very much associated with the horror world as well, between the Amityville franchise, Terror Vision, even Freddy's Nightmare, and you make appearances at horror conventions as well. So what do you enjoy about that genre?
Well, what's interesting about horror, again, as an actor, for me, I like to do many different kinds of roles. And what's really interesting about drama, horror, is it really is drama, except you're, for whatever it is, there might be a monster, you might have to run away, there might be something scary. It's really kind of drama, except that there's something happening that maybe you don't know about, the unexplained. With drama, you're serious as well, but pretty much the facts are right there and you have to kind of deal with what's going on. So, in the past, I always knew I wanted to do some horror, because I felt like it was sort of a rite of passage as an actor. So I did Amityville 2: The Possession when I was 20 years old. And that film I do talk about in my books. I think the first book I talk about that. And that book deals with some very crazy deep subject matter. There's physical abuse, there's incest, there's a lot of stuff going on in that film. It is a classic horror film, though. It is very scary. So I did that, and then I did Terror Vision, which is a horror parody, and I play like a Cyndi Lauper character. So that's kind of goofy and silly. And that was like sort of the inside joke. Like if you watch that film, you had to understand what the 80s were like, because we're like, oh yeah, this is making fun of the the Cyndi Lauper look, or it's making fun of the super heavy metal things, not making fun, but we laugh together. It's a parody. And the exercise world, where like moms were working out and had the exercise clothes on all the time. So that movie is very funny. And we had a real monster, not a CGI monster, but an actual giant gooey animatronic. People, I don't know if it's animatronic, people inside the monster moving it. So that was a very special experience, really very fun. And then Freddy's Nightmares, another thing. I remember playing that character. Wow. It's called The Bride Wore Red. And that was one of the few episodes where I, as a female, was the main character. So a lot of times, like, female characters were not the main storyline, but in that one I was. And I remember that specifically as an experience that was different than anything I had happened before. In Last American Virgin, obviously I'm a part of the story. I'm the object of desire. And even in Amityville too, I'm part of the story, but the guy is the main guy possessed. It's his story. So what was fascinating about Freddy's Nightmares is this was my story. And boy, it was a lot of work. I remember I was exhausted after that episode, but it was so fun. And my character, when you see that, I go through so many different, I become like a little kid, and I'm like a seductress, I'm just a regular girl who's going through stress. And then I become a victim at the end. And it's just a lot of different things. But I will say this, from those, it has led to my horror experience now as an adult, because now as an actress, which I acted in the 80s, I'm being hired to do horror too. So I'm in the Amityville. From those films, I've had young people, a young director-writer named Daniel Farrens, and he loved Amityville to the possession. So he wrote Amityville Murders and asked me to play the mother, which is the same story, but in one I played the daughter, and now this one I play the mom. Oh, it's amazing. It's like
evolution of life there, right?
Someday someone's going to do a video where they cut from my being a child to, as a mom. I mean, what a amazing experience. And then I also did Ted Bundy, American Boogeyman, which is on Hulu right now. So like that one I just did too. I just did another movie. Oh, this is kind of funny. I just got the DVD called Of Clay Zombies. And this was my bucket list. I've always wanted to do a zombie movie.
Well, quintessential horror, of course, right?
Gotta do a zombie movie. Come on. But this one was fun because they did it during the pandemic. So this is a pandemic baby, because it was, I had to shoot the scene and then send it to the director. I had to shoot it myself.
Interesting.
So this is a really cool collector's item. I highly recommend it. Clay Zombies, and Jake Jolly is the writer. So if you look it up or you look it online, he's selling these right now. So it's very cool. So anyway.
Very cool. Definitely look into that.
I do have one more thing to show you, which is kind of interesting. I don't know. Did you see, this is like amazing. This is out now. And I'm only showing the audience this. This is called Shock Cinema Magazine. And it, to me, looks like the ultimate retro magazine. I mean, it's so retro.
I was going to say it's a new magazine because it looks like it could have come out in the 80s, honestly.
I know, isn't it? It just came out. It's actually, somebody said they saw it at Barnes and Noble. And they interviewed me for this. So there's a whole article, but look how retro this is.
Definitely. I love it.
It's so cool. So I just want to say honored to be in something like this, because this is something that I would have been looking at when I was growing up. So I have to say my career is definitely, I'm just so lucky, and it's still, things are happening. All I can tell you is I'm glad to be remembered. So thank you if you remember me. And if you don't, that's okay. This is fine. You know me now.
And then people are finding now. Exactly. There are those who remember you, those who have just discovered you recently, and are still enjoying and experiencing your career along with you, which is super fun. And I do just want to say, getting back to the Amityville for a moment, I want to say how much I love the irony and perfect coincidence of you being a Long Islander and being a part of the Amityville horror world.
Oh my gosh, seriously. Growing up on Long Island and then being okay, watch this. This is really funny. Okay, hold on. Being from Long Island. And so everyone, I'm growing up and everyone's talking like this and stuff. And so I have to lose my dialect to do an acting. I was told, you have too much of a dialect, so stop it, So I had to watch the news, learn to speak like people on the news. And so once I got that down, then of course I get the Amityville movie, which was like, okay, that's hilarious that I did that. And then going back and doing it. And then someone I was just sent this. It's kind of hard to see, but look, it's a little Amityville globe that's sort of messed up, but it's a dark world, a little cloudy. But
it has to be messed up. It's Amityville horror,
right? Exactly. So it was this. Someone made this for me. I loved it, and I will show you this too, just because I have all these things. Look what somebody made this too.
From TerraVision, right? Very cool.
If you're just listening, this is a Hungry Beast, and it was from TerraVision. And someone made this, and I'm just saying, it's just so cool to see all these memories that people are keeping alive.
Absolutely. That's super cool. And I do just want to throw out there, I'm a Long Islander myself originally. So.
Oh, you are? Where are you from?
Yes. So I grew up in Brentwood, but then I've kind of moved around the island and lived in a couple different towns. So.
Oh, good. Well, see, and you don't talk like this, but I'm sure you have friends.
No, exactly. Yes, friends, family, cousins, everybody had that Long Islander thing going on, of course. But
and when you get together,
doing radio, doing interviews and everything, I also, just like you said, you had to, not have that in order to be an actor. It's like if you're going to be doing any kind of communications, you kind of strip any trace of that accent off.
Yep, because you know what it is that people, you want people to hear what you're saying, not your voice. And sometimes if you do your voice, it takes people away from necessarily what you're saying sometimes. I think dialects are awesome. Like everyone's got one. And I love voices. Like, if you're talking, like I had to do a voice like this when from sort of Texas. I was for Dallas the early years, and I had to do a voice like this. And well, if you have to talk, with a British dialect, talk with a different dialect. And so I love voices. Absolutely. One of my passions as well.
Well, I think, obviously for a lot of actors, the more dialects you can do, the better, value you have as an actor, essentially, the more roles that you're able to explore. And of course you had the French dialect, you had, French American rather dialect, and the ones that you just gave the example of. But I think that what you said before about, having to be aware of your own Long Island dialect and kind of correct it in a sense,
yes.
in that sense, makes you more aware of how you speak, your speech patterns, how the actual accent is coming out. And I feel like that probably in a way made you more capable of learning other dialects as well, because you're able to get into that same zone.
Yeah. And you listen. I mean, I'm sure as did as well, it makes you listen better too, because at first, certainly I never heard my own dialect. And then I had to start listening to other people better too. So yeah, it is part of being in the entertainment business where you try to lose it. I mean, I know, and we've also seen a lot of people, let's say from England or some people from Australia, they try to create an American dialect. And so then they can go back to when they need it, but not. So, but it's fascinating. So I'm glad you said that. Yeah, you're a Long Island girl like me.
Yeah, definitely. Another movie that, of course, I do want to make sure I touch on is Bill and Ted, because it's loved by so many. And I'm curious, when fans come up and talk to you about that movie in particular, what do you find they talk about the most? Love it.
Right. Bill and Ted's, right.
Awesome. I love how you have everything in your surroundings right here. You're able to show and tell the whole time. I love it.
Yeah. I figure that people, if they don't know, sometimes a visual is like, oh yeah, that's the one, right?
Right.
Bill and Ted's. Well, Bill and Ted's is amazing because it just keeps going. I never expected when we did Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure that there would even be a part 2, let alone a part 3. And who knows, maybe part 4, right? Like right now, Bill and Ted's is sort of an iconic American phenomenon, and when Bill and Ted Face the Music came out, that was during the pandemic. That was such a great thing to happen because it was so beloved. Like people got to re-examine it again. Like every generation is getting to look back at Bill and Ted's. So I'm hoping that they're going to do a Bill and Ted's with the girls next. Like maybe they'll meet princes or something. I don't know. Like
yeah, definitely from the princess's perspective. That'd be really cool.
Yeah,
somebody should make that.
So I keep telling the writer, do it when they meet, the guys, they meet their own guys from another time period. Bill and Ted's, people always, there are people who know me from Bill and Ted's and they don't know me from anything else. And they are, it's so cool and sweet when they meet me because they treat me like the princess, oh, thou, princess, will thou come to the prom with me,
I love it.
Like it brings out such sweetness in guys when they come up to me.
That's really
and
cool.
then girls I've seen like with the jackets, they will put like their names on, bogus or, adventure on jackets and stuff. People will, I think what it is it draws people who want to be excellent to each other and who like that sensibility and that, and Keanu's like goofiness, like, dude, or what's going on? Like, or, and Alex, that kind of like, what, dude? I don't know, but we got to meet the babes, like that whole vernacular and that whole world. It just brings out, I think, the fun in people.
Absolutely. They're very fun movies. And also, the same element of comedy that we're talking about, it definitely brings out a good side in people as well. And that was a great impression you had there too, with that whole dude thing.
Thank you, dude. Right.
Of course. No, you mentioned that, that's something that I feel like fans do like to discuss, because when Bill and Ted first meet the princesses, they ask you to prom, like you just quoted there. And then it turns out that the actual prom scene ended up being omitted from the movie. So what happened there?
Yes, there was. We actually, dudes, I'll tell you something. We actually went to the prom in San Diego and we shot it in Arizona. And it was most triumphant. What was really great about it was, they actually took us to the prom and we got out of the phone booth with George Carlin with Rufus. And we became prom king and prom queens, prom kings and prom queens together. And that's how the movie ended. But I think that they wanted to end the guys being in the band, which is why we reshot it. But the ending of the first one where we did go to the prom was most triumphant because the guys wore they wore tuxedos, but they cut the pants off at the knee and wore them with high top sneakers and socks. Okay. If that scene had gone into mainstream media, no one would have gone to the prom without cutting their pants. And tailors would have been really into a big business, and tuck stores would have been really mad.
Honestly, start a whole new trend there.
It would have been huge. I mean, seriously, it was the funniest thing and it looked adorable, but it would have started a major trend. So
absolutely.
Maybe they'll do it in the future movies. Yeah.
Really I mean, you never know. I mean, I can see, I guess, why they wanted to bring it back to the band, because that ends up continuing on the storyline into the second movie, into the third movie. So, in a way, but wish we could have at least seen that scene.
Gosh, seriously. I don't know if there's any actual photos of that look. And I hope there is somewhere, because if there is, that is the classic. That's the classic shot. I have all the pictures I have are like from the waist up. I don't have the full look, but
interesting. Somebody's probably got something out there.
Yeah, I gotta look for that. So
definitely. So that's overall in your career, what role do you feel like you've had the most freedom with, whether it was with your style and appearance, the way you dressed or something, or maybe improvising something about the character or lines or anything like that?
Wow, that's a really good point. I think as acted, I felt more, I felt freer as I've grown as an actor. I felt freer. I have to say, like back in the day when you were an actor, like in the early 80s, certainly you really had to stay to script. It was improvisation was not encouraged because filming was very, very expensive. And so you got an opportunity to be on film for a certain amount of time, and the footage of it was really expensive. If they did a second take, it was expensive. It wasn't like digital where you could erase it. It was actual real film. And so I was much more to the script and to the lines when I started, okay? And that was because it was that limited. And actors really had to be very self-disciplined and very trained, I guess, or they had to really have their lines memorized and blocking and know exactly what they're doing, because again, you didn't get the opportunity to do it again. And I was more timid. I wasn't trained in improv. And I don't know if people were at that time. It really wasn't. The entertainment business was a lot more limited. We started with like 13 channels, and then it would be cable. Oh, wow, cable comes out. Oh, wait, now there's like VHS and we could tape things at home. It was throughout my lifetime, like this is what entertainment was. I mean, it's still changing so quickly.
Absolutely. Now it's like endless.
As we speak now, it's just streaming. So like, so we've left CDs now, and we've moved on, Blu-rays and so forth. So as far as my freedom, I think I started to first feel my freedom when I did Better Off Dead, though still limited because I didn't want to take too many chances. But Savage Steve Holland, the director, was such a great guy, and he really embraced the actors' ideas. He was like, oh yeah, try it and see. So I didn't feel intimidated saying what I thought. So that's when I kind of started giving a little bit more. But in my eyes, to be a professional actor was to take the material I was given and find a way to make that work and make sense. It wasn't to change what the writer wrote and then just make it my own. And I think every actor has its own style or a way of doing it, but that was my challenge. When I did, I'd say, by the time I did, I would say Amityville Murders, I'd say I had a lot of fun doing that film because now as an actor, I'm taking more chances because I'm realizing that a lot of directors and people who are making entertainment now really need the older generation to show them how it's done, like show how to work. So I feel more comfortable saying like, okay, I need my space to do this, or what, let's try this, because it sort of helps the group. But you can always tell in a sense when what the director wants. But young directors, they really appreciate a professional sharing their professional experiences with them. I think Absolutely. It helps the next generation. So I think I've gotten a lot more confident and a lot more creative as an adult.
That's great. And you've learned, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and you've learned, you've shared a lot of experiences and things that you've learned over the years. So it makes it, now you've kind of become a teacher and a mentor in the sense for actors, directors to share your experiences, what you've learned, what you've grown through as well.
Absolutely. I wish that I had someone like me helping me when I was younger. And I know a lot of people, sometimes, people have the entertainment acting, music, influencers. Not everybody's confident. Not everyone feels good about themselves. Not everyone has the information to be able to move forward. And so I feel like that I can do that. And I understand it's valuable. And I also think that I get afraid myself and I get scared. And when I do, it's like, feel the fear and do it anyway. You got to do it. You feel the fear, do it anyway. And you're going to feel fear your whole life. It's never in your pocket. Okay. You're never done. You're never like, oh yeah, point done that, you're always stretching yourself. So today, even the things I do, I'm still stretching myself. I'm stretching myself as a female adult. I'm playing roles that are so totally different than when I was younger. I'm taking chances. And I have to say that brings me happiness as a performer, taking chances. I think if I played it safe, I would never have gotten the confidence I have.
That's good. It's all good advice all around. But listen, you just have to contact Bill and Ted and ask them if you can use the time machine so that you can go and tell your younger self all these things. It'll be set.
Oh, that's good. High five on that.
Virtual high fives. Of course. Now, talking about next generations and everything, performing runs in your family as well, because both of your children are involved in entertainment and show business. So I read that your daughter Olivia is a comedian and actress and your son Nicholas is a musician. So I'd like you to talk about that. Was it something they were naturally drawn to, much like you were at a young age?
Well, okay, first of all, when you're a mom and you're an actor or dad and an actor, I mean, and if you don't know it, that your child is going to ask to be an actor at some point. They're going to say, I want to be actor. I want to do what you do. I mean, even if I was a policeman, they want to be a policeman. Like the kids do what they want, that what their parents do. They're curious, right? And there's a certain amount of confidence they feel if they've seen the lifestyle, like they understand every job has a certain lifestyle. Sometimes it's 9 to 5, sometimes it's freelance, so kids learn from that. But especially if you're an actor, entertainer, singer, of course your kid wants to try it, but that might not be their dream, but they want to try it. So when my kids were little, I knew like there's going to come a time, but I didn't want it to be, I knew it was my dream, but I wanted to make sure, I wanted them to understand what the life is like. So when my daughter was really little, my daughter was born first, she had like a photographic memory. And so I said, well, and we would always play make-believe and acting. So we always play make-believe. And she actually like would write stuff. And really at a very young age, she actually made her first movie at literally 5. I'm not saying like she knew how to film it and all, but she created the story and I was like, you want to do a story? Let's like, what's the beginning, middle, and end? Like we just went through this whole thing. And she just liked the creative process, which I believe a lot of kids enjoy, but they sometimes don't, the parents they don't know how to do it, or they may not have the lightness, or they may not have the time, that's another thing. So now, by the way, my parents were German immigrants. My parents did not play with me like I did with my daughter, but, like they were, they were doing their thing, but I was a very creative kid. So if you have the spirit, it will soar through everything. And if you have the desire and the dream, you will keep it. It will not go away, and you will make it happen somehow. But with my daughter, she was interested, she liked to play make-believe. So by the time when she was younger, she started acting, and we got her, asked her if she wanted to go on auditions and stuff. One of the funny things Olivia did when she was really little was the voice of Lilo for Lilo and Stitch, for not the film, but the first one, but she did it for like commercials and toys and theme parks and she, the TV show a little bit. So she did the voice for things, but because she had that kind of tenor of like, hey, it's like, I can't do it, but she could do it. She also worked with Julie Andrews. Seriously, if you look up The Cat That Looked at the King on YouTube, you will see her at 7 years old acting with Julie Andrews, who, by the way, told me Olivia had an impeccable dialect. And I was like, oh my gosh, Julie Andrews said that. And, as a mom, I'm like, she has no idea who Julie Andrews is. And I'm like, it's Julie Andrews.
Of course, that's someone you grew up seeing as well. So that's awesome.
Right. There you go. That was my incredible excitement. So anyway, but she has done, she did a lot of things. But with Olivia, she also grew up at the time when the home computers started. Remember, we didn't always have those home computers. That's like, again, like take advantage of the technology, people. If we have free information, what if, YouTube shut down and they said, no more free information, you had to pay for it? I mean, we are in a very, very generous time right now as far as the internet goes. So she started making her own movies and started doing films. And in the meantime, my son, who has bright red curly hair, gorgeous hair, we would go on auditions, and then my son would come in and they'd be like, bring him in. And my son loved, was hilarious. He was so funny and so adorable when he was little, but he knew at an early age, no, I don't want to be an actor. And I was like, fine, that's all good. But he was part of my daughter's, movies that she made and stuff. So he got a lot of chance to be in front of the camera and performing, but his thing was music. He knew at a very young age, which I must say a lot of kids do know, music. Sometimes, again, you connect to your passion, what you love, art, drawing, and it could ice skating, gymnastics, whatever, soccer, like you connect to whatever it is you love. At a very young age, and if somebody tells you, forget about that, don't take them that seriously. Listen to your heart, right? They may, you might not be able to pay for lessons then, but that doesn't mean you can't practice. That doesn't mean you can't watch things and figure it out. That's what all great artists do. They do much with nothing, many things with nothing. So, so my son, he started going towards music, and he's written his own music. He's on Spotify under Nick De Laurentiis, and he plays the upright bass. And now he's a classical musician, but he also has his own music, and he also plays with a band called Swatches. So you could look up Nick De Laurentiis on Spotify. You could hear his other music with Swatches, and he also plays classical music. So he is with play orchestras. So he just, in his mind, he loves writing, creating, again, anything having to do with music. And I know really nothing about music, so I just encourage him to explore his passions. That's what my husband and I do. And with my daughter, wow, she is, if you don't know about Olivia, you will soon probably know about her at some point, because she's done so many different things. She's been she's on TikTok right now with her comedy partner, Sid and Olivia, where they do sketch comedy kind of things. She's on Snapchat with a show called Apocalypse Goals, which is really funny, hilarious. I'm going to tell you, you're in your 20s, you're going to love this show. Hilarious. She's been on the Ellen DeGeneres has a show, a digital platform called Sage, so she and Sydney are giving advice. It's called the Generational Show. I think it's not, but it's on Sage. This is with her comedy partner, Sydney Heller. So I want to share that. Sydney's hilarious, amazing. The two of them are great, and they're BFFs. And then she's also been in movies. She is also in American Boogeyman, Ted Bundy, American Boogeyman. She's the one who fights off Bundy, so she can do drama. And she was just on a TV show called Pivoting, where of all things, she plays a secretary from Long Island.
Long Island, I love it.
We're back again. And boy, she's talking it up like this. And she just got another film, and so she's doing a lot of things. So if you don't follow me, please follow my kids. It's a terrible thing to say, but yes, follow Olivia on go to oliviadelaurentis.com or Sid, SYD and Olivia on .com, and go to Nick De Laurentiis on Spotify. So awesome. There's mom's press.
That's the right thing to do when it comes to
I'm sorry, once you get me on my kids, there's no stopping. It's a whole other.
It's great.
Podcast.
It sounds like just like you've had a very well-rounded career with a variety of experiences and roles. It sounds like they're doing the same kind of thing, very well-rounded.
Yeah, they're well-rounded. They're good kids. They're good people, and they're all I can say is my husband and I just every day we're like, oh my gosh, how'd we get so lucky to have these kids? And it's just because I think we appreciate them. And when you're a parent, look, if your parent doesn't appreciate you, it's a hard world. It's hard in life. Not every parent has the luxury to take the time to be able to share their love with you. And sometimes parents have an awkward, they don't know how to. Maybe maybe they were raised in a way where they weren't told I love you, or they weren't affectionate. And so they feel awkward about it, but it's not that they don't love you. It's that maybe they don't feel good about themselves. There's a lot of ways, but I'm going to tell you something. Your parents, if you don't have your parents, then there are other people in your life that can give you that experience. So that's the other thing too. If let's say you don't have a mom and dad there are other people who could be supportive of you. Teachers, coaches, friends, other people can be there for you. You don't have to get it from your parents. You can get it from people around you. And I, as a teacher, give that to my students. I give that kind of support because everybody is special. Everyone is absolutely special. It's just, you got to believe it yourself. All right.
Absolutely.
So you can do it, as Monique should say. All right.
Perfect message. No, that's absolutely true. And very important message. I'm, glad to hear that you're doing that as well. So you're saying that you're a teacher as well, so it's not only just you working with, younger directors and actors and mentoring them, but you're officially actually a teacher and you teach acting. And you were just telling me about, before we started the interview, telling me about the plays that you're working on right now with your students.
Yes, I teach. I'm online as a teacher, but I work so much. My next thing is, I've been telling people to start my business mostly. It's called Most Excellent Acting Studio. That's where
Perfect.
Isn't that great? I haven't officially put it all out there because I am so busy working right now. I work with kids in a public school district, and I teach them. I coach privately, one-on-one for any actor of any age. So if you're an actor, you need coaching, I can coach you. But I also teach students, and right now we're doing the importance of being earnest. And I'm also directing Moana Junior. It's a lot. But because we're working with, young kids, I keep that separate usually. But I love working with kids. I just can't help it. And in fact, it was so funny today. I was working with some kids, and a woman came up to me, a parent. She was like, "Oh, I want to get my kid involved with working with you." And I was like, "Oh, you have to do this and that, blah, blah, blah." And she goes, "You are so great with kids." And I said, "Because I love it." And she goes, "I can tell." And it was just so, I think it's, again, giving back. So when you can do it, and it makes you feel good to give back to. So
absolutely. No, that's a great message. And I think it's easy to tell that you genuinely do love what you do. And that's for all areas, the performing, the teaching, your family. You're very excited and passionate about everything. And that definitely comes through. So I think that everyone should definitely go check out your books and get a little more of that experience of you and your stories and your wonderful experiences. And it has been an amazing time talking to you today, Diane.
Oh, thank you so much. And French fries, French bread, French dressing, and Peru. All right. Have a very nice day. I wish you the best.
Perfect message to close it on. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.